All right, the time is now 5:01, and we're coming out of recess, and the board will now adjourn into executive session pursuant to the following sections. 551.071, private consultation with board attorney, and 551.074, discussion of officers, employees, and personnel matters. And those should be the only two, but I'm going to go ahead and add 551.076, considering deployment, specific occasions for or implementation of security personnel and devices.
That will be on there as well.
Okay. The time is now 5:02. Good evening. The time is now 6 o'clock, and we will reconvene into open session. And before the invocation, Ms. Alana, I believe you have something to talk to the people about?
Yes. This past week, we lost another longtime educator from Granbury ISD. Louise Hidalgo was a longtime teacher at Granbury Middle School. She taught language arts, and she was also the drama teacher. She left quite a legacy in Granbury. Her children went to school here, and her grandchildren. And she had a granddaughter, Haley, that was a graduate of STARS. And she was the first recipient of our GISD Academic Hall of Fame for our students. So Ms. Hidalgo was well loved by many, many students over the years and those that had an opportunity to work with her. And I would just like to remember her and her family at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Alana. And now, Mr. Wimberly, you will have our invocation.
Let's pray. Most gracious Heavenly Father, we gather here today in the spirit of community and purpose. As we convene during this summer break, we ask for your guidance and wisdom. Help us to make decisions that will benefit our students, teachers, and staff to create an environment that fosters learning and growth. Grant us the clarity to see the needs of our community and the courage to address them. May our discussions be filled with respect, understanding, and a shared commitment to the betterment of our schools. Bless our efforts and help us to work together in harmony. We thank you for the privilege of serving these roles, and we ask for your continued blessings on our schools and everyone involved in the educational process. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. And now we'll have the pledges with Ms. Lowry. Without our children, we don't have any academic excellence to tell you about, but I bet that Dr. Glenn will have some good stuff to talk to about.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for the opportunity to provide tonight's report. As promised last month, we are in a three-part series on the school district budgeting process. And so I have a short video to play before I jump into my report. These videos are put together by Raise Your Hand Texas, and this one is called School Funding, How or What Do Schools Spend Their Money On? And so Mr. Cox is going to help me get this going for everybody.
Providing adequate resources to support and serve all students in our Texas public schools requires a substantial amount of funding. And the money we invest in our schools matters. But once that funding arrives at school districts, how does it actually get allocated? A good way to understand how school districts invest their resources is to look at how each dollar is spent, or how the money is poured into our schools. Right off the top, over half of every dollar covers instruction and paying teachers, the backbone of our public schools. The next largest budget category is facility maintenance. Public schools have large physical footprints, and keeping the lights on, the water flowing, the grass cut, and more requires significant resources. Together, paying teachers and maintaining facilities accounts for about 2/3 of public schools spending. The remaining third has to stretch a long way. About 15% of funds provide for additional staff like nurses, counselors, principals, instructional coaches, and district administrators. Just under 10% goes towards basic student needs of transportation to and from school and student meals. Extracurricular programming, including the fine arts and athletic programs that inspire and cultivate student and family enthusiasm, accounts for about 3% of spending. Other needs, like IT infrastructure and school safety provisions, are covered by the remaining funds. This is how school funding supports and maintains well-running schools. As you can see, there isn't much room to trim. And the growing challenge we need to address immediately is the rising cost of operating public schools and educating children. We've all encountered how rising inflation impacts our lives and our households. Our current school funding system doesn't account for inflation, and school districts have tightened their belts like the rest of us. However, with increasing costs, operational necessities, high expectations, and little room to trim, every public school student suffers when inflation rises without sufficient additional support. With less buying power, all schools, even those in property-wealthy districts, will struggle to retain high-quality teachers, maintain safe and efficient facilities, and preserve programs our kids and families care about. A strong Texas economy depends heavily on student success in college, career, and military readiness. Tell your legislators that money matters in education, because investing in public education is investing in the future of Texas.
All right. Thank you, Ryan, and appreciate you. Raise your hands up. Texas putting this together. Obviously, that was put together before this last legislative session. And so for those of you that were here at 4 o'clock, you got to hear Mr. Whitefield give a budget workshop discussing the 24-25 budget and from where we're at from a preliminary standpoint. And again, work on this began really back in probably January, February. It looks like we are going to not only be presenting a balanced budget, which puts us in a very rare category this year because lots of school districts will be adopting deficit budgets, but it looks like that we're also going to possibly have the ability to lower the school tax rate again for an 8th consecutive year. And that's something I think that all the trustees are immensely proud of, that we continue to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars, and hopefully we will be bringing a defeasance to the board in August, which will allow us not only to lower our tax rate on the M&O side, but use some money on the INS side to pay down debt quicker, which will ultimately save taxpayers money on interest. And so we look forward to presenting all of that, and I want to thank Emmett Whitefield and his staff once again for the great job they did during the budget workshop. Just to let everybody else know, a couple of other things are going on. Wes Jones is not with us tonight. He is in Alaska, lucky dog. And so he has the HR report, which we will present later, but just really a shout out to his department, all the directors and campuses for a tremendous job, really staying on top of hiring this year. We're seeing lower attrition rates. I think a lot of that can not only be attributed to the increase in pay through the VATRE, but I think specifically just a great job from our campus leadership team and the directors for the outstanding culture they have put in place here in GISD. Capturing Kids' Hearts training is coming up, and trustees Stacy Brown and her team would love to have you attend, and so be looking for information on that. Also, it's crazy to think, but we are going to have teachers back in the district in 2 weeks. So 2 more weeks this summer for all those teachers that are watching online. Enjoy those 14 days because they will pass quickly. And on August 5th, we will have convocation. And I know Stacy Brown is a great speaker. We have a great program, so we're excited about that. And a lot going on. We had the budget report that Emmett presented, but as we prepare not only for the budget but the upcoming school year, we know that it is going to be hot, and our buildings, we're having our maintenance team. I just think they deserve a tremendous shout out. I know they are working diligently right now to make sure that the buildings are cool when it hits 110 in August and our teachers are back. We know there will be bumps along the way, but those guys work hard. They deserve a shout out. And I visited with our transportation director today. They're about 3/4 of the way through our fleet, working on repairs, making sure air conditioners are up and running. And we've talked about it. We have an older bus fleet, but the guys in our transportation department are working hard. They're being diligent to make sure that repairs are done. And I know Mr. Whitefield and Hussein are working to get bids out to make a bus purchase, hopefully in the end of August, very beginning of September, we'll have them, and we're looking at probably a 5 to 7 month window for those to be delivered. But we're making great strides here in GISD. It is summer, but the school year is quickly approaching, so we're excited about that. Madam President, that's all I have for you and the trustees tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Glenn. Okay, next on the agenda is public comments. Read this every month, but want to make sure everybody knows. To better serve the students, staff, and communities throughout GISD, individuals who wish to address the board during public comment portion of the board meeting are required to register online. The form can be found on the GISD website under the School Board and Board Meetings tab. If someone lacks the technology necessary to complete the online submission form, they can call the GISD Administration Building or complete the form in person at the Granbury ISD Administration Building. Registration will open at the time the meeting agenda is posted, typically by 5 p.m. on Friday before the meeting or 72 hours prior to the start of the meeting. Registration will close at noon the day of the meeting. Please understand that in accordance with Texas law, the board is not able to respond directly to comments or questions posed by the speakers during public comments. Therefore, GISD staff members will review all submissions and, if necessary, reach out to seek resolution or additional information prior to the meeting. Today, we have one person who signed up for public comment, and that is Mr. Tim Bolton. Mr. Bolton?
Turn the mic on. I'm sorry, Mr. Bolton. Just push that button up.
How about that? Oh,
Perfect.
my goodness, no one wants that. So I really wanted to talk, oh my goodness, that's really loud. About the proposed demographic study that's upcoming. I don't know if that's laying the groundwork for another bond or if there's a plan to balance the student population across existing assets and campuses, or maybe an opportunity to consolidate and shutter some campuses where the student population is dwindling. I'm interested to know that. I want to know, I know you guys can't answer me directly, but so I'll just put these out as questions maybe that we can all hear, that who would conduct the demographic study and is the cost for that known? I'd like this board to consider tapping into the state resources. The state does some excellent demographic studies, and Granbury is the subject of a lot of that because of the 377 expansion, so that's out there and available, and it would certainly save taxpayer dollars, and you could apply those to some of the ways that dollar breaks down within GISD, so we can save that money. And then on the tail end of that, when the demographic study, that report comes out, I'd want to know if parents and other concerned citizens like myself would be able to participate in and weigh in on any decisions that would be coming out of that report. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, from now, we will go on to consider action on items discussed in closed session. Dr. Glenn?
Thank you, Madam President. You have before you the personnel report as presented by the HR department. Again, I mentioned Mr. Jones is not here with us, but I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. It is our recommendation that you approve this report as presented.
And do I hear a motion?
Madam President, I move that we accept the staff recommendations as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Alana. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And that passes unanimously. Moving on to the consent agenda item, are there any of the consent agenda items that would like to be pulled out?
Yes, ma'am, I'd like to pull one.
Which one would you like to pull?
A, with the June 24th minutes.
Yes, ma'am, okay.
I would like those tabled until next month when the verbiage is corrected. We need to strike the sentence, "There wasn't enough documentation to support asking for a forensic audit." I gave the link to 171 pages of documentation for that, so I would like that corrected.
Okay, is there anything else that people would like to pull?
I'd like to pull item 10B to recognize the donations from our community.
Okay, is there any other things that need to be pulled? Okay, so let's first go back to Ms. Lowry's wanting to table the 10A to correct verbiage. Do I have a second on that?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
Which item on the minutes is that sentence in?
10A,
10A?
yes.
Within the minutes themselves, 10A is the agenda item, but within the minutes themselves, which portion of the minutes?
The one with the resolution for the Hood County Appraisal District.
B?
Okay,
11B. Yeah.
11B, okay.
oh, okay, okay.
The second sentence.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I see where you're talking
Yeah.
about. So really what you want to do is you want to strike that line,
Yes.
okay? Also, in that particular one, I would also like to go to 11C and 11D, the last line in each one, where they say what Ms. Lowry and Ms. Graft voted. It's already up above that. It does not need to be repeated. So I was going to delete those two lines as well.
So could you repeat the motion for me?
The motion that Ms. Lowry has on right now is to table the entire minutes for June 24th so that the change can be made to that one sentence in 11B. What I'm wanting is something different from her motion. So I guess we vote on that motion first.
You have a motion and a second to table.
She got a second, I
Yes,
believe.
so no more discussion on that. Do you want to go ahead and vote on that?
I have a question,
Yes.
a point of clarification. Do we have to table it, or can we just make those amendments now and then approve the minutes with those amendments?
You can strike that language and
We
then
can
approve the
strike that
minutes.
language, yes. But we have a motion, so yes, we could strike that, and we could strike the other two lines that I want to strike and make one thing. But first, we have a motion on the table, or for tabling this. So my first question would be, we can vote on this and vote it yea or nay, or do you want to change your motion to just strike that line?
Yes, that's fine. I will, I move to strike the line, "There wasn't enough documentation to support asking for a forensic audit on the June 24th minutes."
Do you want to second that, Ms. Graft?
I'll second that.
Okay. May I add to the motion the two lines that I want to strike? Okay. Are you okay with that, Ms. Graft? Okay. So the motion that is here right now has been amended to be striking the one line from 11B, the last line from 11C, and the last line from 11D. We have a motion and we have a second. Is there any other discussion?
I was not at that meeting, so should I recuse myself from this? I don't know if I should be making a vote on this since I was not at that meeting.
You are welcome to recuse for yourself.
Okay. I will be recusing myself from this vote since I was not at the meeting, so I don't know all the background here.
That's fine. Any other questions? Okay, so we have a motion and a second, and all in favor, raise your hand. Okay, we have, so that'll be 6-4 and 1 recused, and the motion passes with the changes to those 3 items on that consent agenda item. All right, moving on to 10B, Ms. Gore.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to recognize the donations that we have received from our community for this last month. We've received a donation from the Lady Pirates Softball Booster Club to the Team Campus Activity Fund for the summer camp t-shirts in the amount of $630. We've received a donation from Granbury Optimist Club to the Junior Optimist Activity Fund to stock the athletic freezer in the amount of $360. We've received a donation from the Granbury Optimist Club to the GHS Band Activity Fund to support the program in the amount of $171. A donation from the Hood County Committee on Aging to the Pirate Production Studios Activity Fund in the amount of $200. A donation from Sweeted Entertainment LLC, that's the Brazos Drive-In, to Pirate Production Studio Activity Fund in the amount of $175. We have received a $400 donation from Prosperity Bank. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped this one. We received a $175 donation from Prosperity Bank to the Robotics Activity Fund for the 24-25 season, and a $400 donation from Eric Sullivan, Crystal Blake, and Michelle Lucero, $100 each respectively, to the Substitute Appreciation gift cards. We've also received a donation from Operation School Supplies to the fund for supply orders in the amount of $139.05. Donation from Sharon Jessup to Operation School Supplies in the amount of $40. Donation from Granbury Optimist Club to Operation School Supplies in the amount of $5,000. And a donation from Trustee Billy Wimberly to Operation School Supplies in the amount of $500. That is a total donation from the community in the amount of $7,615.05. So thank you to all of our community members and organizations that have supported our district. We are so grateful.
All right, so I need a motion for approving the consent agenda items with the modifications that have been made to 10A. Motion?
Madam President, I move that we approve the consent agenda items as presented with the amendments added to item A.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Ms. Alana, seconded by Ms. Lowry. Those in favor, please raise your hand. And it passes unanimously. Very good. Moving on to discussion and actions, and the first up is consider approval of a warranty deed for 10.05 acres from the City of Granbury to the Board of Trustees of Granbury ISD. Dr. Glenn.
Thank you, Madam President. Before I get into it, I'll give everybody a little background on this. Back when Dr. Largent was superintendent, the city and the school district got together and they did a best use study for the property located adjacent this building. We refer to it as the Weatherford College or Decker property. For years, that property was actually owned by the city of Granbury. My understanding is, I guess back in the, we'll say 50s, it was donated to GISD for school use. And for years, the school put buildings on that property and used it to educate kids. Roughly 2012-ish, the school started moving out of those buildings. One of the buildings on that property was condemned and torn down. The school essentially all but moved out. Weatherford College was using the larger building on the property as a satellite campus, and obviously we had STARS and BTC in one of the wings of the building, but otherwise the property was vacant. The best use study was going to put the property to use for the public good. And so city leadership at the time and trustee leadership said, you know what, we will deed this property back to the city and allow them to move forward with this future development for the public of Granbury. Leadership changed at the city council level, and they have decided that they are not going to move forward with any plans as it relates to the best use study for that property. And there was a provision in there that if that property was not used for the public good, it had to revert back to the ISD. It's a reclaw provision. It's a reclaw provision. It's required by state law, and so that provision was in the contract. We were contacted by Chris Kaufman at the city, and he let us know that they are not going to move forward with any type of development on that property. So they are going to give the majority of that property back to GISD. Essentially where that creek bed is, if you were to walk out of this building, you would see it. It's pretty identifiable. They are going to keep the property from the creek bed to the park, which used to be GISD property. That'll include the field house, and then the Decker building, the Decker field, and then the Weatherford College building, and obviously STARS would revert back to GISD. And so what you have in front of you is a warranty deed and title that allows the board president to execute that change of title back to the ISD. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. So probably the biggest one, and we'll jump into this at a later date, is getting together and probably putting a plan in place for what we're going to do with the property. We're going to be responsible for the insurance, the utilities, the maintenance, the upkeep now. The city will let go of all that. They did make improvements to a piece of the Decker facility, but it's only about half of the building that really is usable right now. So we've already started from a preliminary standpoint, getting ready to transition all of that into our name. But we'll move forward to the title and have Ms. Townsend execute the agreement upon your approval tonight. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions at all?
I'd like to go ahead and make a motion before we have any discussion.
Wonderful.
Okay, I move that we accept the property back from the city of Granbury and give the board president authority to sign the deed.
Thank you, Ms. Alana.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Wimberly. Any other questions or comments?
If we want to go tour the property, we can get that set up.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. What Ms. Gore just asked about is being able to tour that property. The trustees will set up a time where they can tour it, and anyone else who's interested, just let GISD know, and we'll talk about that. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. No more discussion. All those in favor of approving the warranty deed back, please raise your hand. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Consider approval of the demographic study contract for 2024-2025 school year. Mr. Whitefield and Dr. Glenn.
Thank you, Madam President. A proposal has been received by Zonta Intelligence to provide a comprehensive demographic study for the Granbury ISD for the 24-25 school year. The study will include a 10-year enrollment forecast by the campus, grade level, analysis of existing demographics, and enrollment history. geocoding of student databases, review of building patterns, housing research, multifamily tracking, yield analysis, and deed transactions analysis. The proposed price for this contract is $22,000. It is included in the budget that was presented to you tonight, and we recommend that the board approve the engagement with Zonda Intelligence for the 24-25 year for a demographic study. Sir.
Yeah, thank you, Emmett. And just, again, a little more background, and also to Mr. Bolton, who had a few questions that I'll try and answer as best I can during this report. So demographic studies, Zonda Demographics, historically, the board has used Templeton Demographics. Zonda purchased Templeton Demographics, so it really is the same company, and they have been pretty much spot on, or very close historically. They're one of the biggest forecasting firms for school districts in the state of Texas, but they also do forecasting and nationally as well. Our demographic reports, after they're completed, we do upload them for the public to view online. And as we get involved in any type of strategic planning, obviously they become the basis for discussion. I can tell you that I'm not aware of the state of Texas doing demographic studies for the state of, for school districts specifically. And I do know that the demographic studies in the past that the school districts have used, the city and the county have both reached out for our studies as they are pretty in-depth, and they explore not only what the district is going to forecast from a student population, 5 to 10 years out, but they do a great job of kind of grabbing all the subdivisions and developments in the city and outside the city. So it really helps the city and the county connect with the building going up in the building and construction and development going up in Crescent, as well as out in Abe's Landing, out in Pecan Plantation, and what's happening with the city. And so what you see from the agents that work for Zonda is they'll connect with the mayor at Crescent, they'll connect with the city of Granbury, they'll connect with Hood County, they'll connect with local developers, and then they also obviously monitor birth rates as how they project student enrollment and growth in the area. And so they grab all that data and they put it together in a comprehensive report. And it does allow us to make decisions like, hey, do we need a new campus? Where do we need a new campus? Do we need to close a campus? Are we losing enrollment? Do we have the ability to rezone students from one area of town to another area of town in lieu of adding a campus? And those are all things that strategic planning committees in the past have historically analyzed before making recommendations to the board regarding anything from rezonings to bonds.
And the 377 study, they used our demographic report as part of that information, correct?
Yeah, I know Mr. Kaufman reached out.
Okay,
and,
that's what I thought.
Yeah.
On this demographic study, can we specify for like capacity in buildings? Some demographers will use like the fire code, like how many people can you cram into that building under the fire code? Doesn't necessarily translate into a classroom. Like we want to keep the teacher-student ratios low, so based on those numbers, this is what our capacity is. Can we specify that in this study so that parents get an actual real-world view of the capacity of that building as far as the classroom size goes, not how many kids or bodies we can actually cram in that building?
Yeah, so I think what you're asking too, and they can break it down, and we have not done this in the past, but they can show what the building capacity is, what the additional capacity is with portables added to it, and then again, what the additional capacity is when you begin converting, areas that were not traditionally designed to be classroom space into classroom space. For example, we talk a lot about, like at Bronner, we have a art closet that was converted to a small group classroom. And so they can break it down that far, or they can just say, here's the functional capacity, what the building was designed for, base capacity without all these add-ons.
Okay, yeah, I think functional capacity is something that our community needs to see, because when they get those numbers and it gets confusing, well, our building is overflowing, but it says we can still fit this many bodies in there. It doesn't necessarily translate to the real world problems we're facing in that building.
And we definitely need to separate out portables.
Yeah. And so Zonda will come and have those conversations with the district. They'll have those conversations with the city, with the county, and then they'll come and present to the trustees as well. So you'll have the opportunity, a couple of opportunities to visit with them. So about the report.
And Dr. Glenn, I believe Mr. Bolton was wondering if concerned citizens could get information on the study once it's completed. Could you address that?
Yeah, absolutely. And so again, once the study's completed, there will be a public presentation. So the individual who conducts it for Zonda, in the past it's been Bob Templeton. I don't know who they'll send us this time, but they'll send us the agent specifically that will come in and go through the demographic study, how they arrived at the numbers, and that'll be a public presentation for everybody to see. And then once that presentation is over with, it'll be up on our website.
And just for more clarification to Mr. Bolton's question, he asked, is the demographic study in correlation for possibly another bond?
So, historically, we have used demographic studies as a basis for calling a bond. The district every other year has called for a demographic study to be able to address growth. I don't think it necessarily means we have to call for a bond. It could allow us to look at rezoning. It could give us an idea of district growth. Obviously, if we're seeing no growth coming into the area, they're not building subdivisions, they're not building homes, we're seeing declining enrollment, I don't think there would be a need to call a bond. If the data from it dictates that, there could be a sharp enrollment increase in future years, then the board always has the ability to make the decision to call a bond.
Madam President? I would move that we approve the engagement of Zonda Intelligence to conduct the 24-25 demographic study at a cost of $22,000 and to be completed by September 20th, 2024.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Valana. Thanks, Ms. Gore. One point I wanted to make sure was made is, Mr. Whitefield, am I correct that the last time that they did a study for us, it was $25,000? Did this actually go down in price?
That is correct. It was I believe it was $24,000.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. This is a reduced price to that.
I'm in shock. Something actually went down in price. Okay.
And also, the money for this is budgeted, correct? It's not something we're going to be extra.
It is in the budget that was presented to you in the budget workshop this morning, so it is included in those numbers.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, we have a motion and a second. Those in favor, please raise your hand. We have, okay, and those opposed? Okay, we have 2 against and then 5 for, the nays being Ms. Lowry and Ms. Gore. Okay. I'm sorry, not Ms. Gore, Ms. Graft. I apologize. Okay, that finishes up our discussion and action. We now move on to reports, and we begin with Ms. Whiteley.
Good evening, Board and Dr. Glenn. For the 23-24 school year, just to let you know, the overview of child nutrition is, our mission is to feed our kiddos the best meals that we possibly can, breakfast and lunch each day. That is one of their basic needs, and we try to meet that each day that they're in school. Maybe? Try it now. There we go. Okay. Then our budget and our staffing for this past year, we had 64 employees with us, and we served close to 1.3 million meals, which is amazing. We continue to rise each year and increase that number. And then Emma, we do their snacks at the end of each day, and there were 46,000 of those meals. Here's our revenues and our expenditures. And as you can tell, our revenues were less than our expenditures for this year. We will have a loss at the end of August. And that will be taken up by our, just lost the word, Emmett, fund balance. Thank you. This is just a breakdown of our a la carte sales and the revenue that we made specifically from those products, so close to $450,000. With Emma Robertson Early Learning Academy, those students still continue to have family-style dining. They do a lot of hands-on learning, shapes, colors, things like that. And we continue to do the fresh fruits and vegetables with them. And then also teaching them how to actually hold cups and use silverware, those fine motor skills, and then again, feeding them that snack at the end of the day. Then our summer lunch program, we did partner with Neighbors Feeding Neighbors this year to help us get volunteers for our community sites, and it was very successful. We actually increased our number of kiddos that we fed by 1,500 meals just in the month of June. So that was really positive for us. We had 8 sites that included our summer school sites and our community sites. And then our strategic plan for next year, going back to the free and reduced meal program, of course, trying to get as many of those households to complete the application. We have already started that process, doing everything that we can to reach those households. And also, purchasing the highest quality of food that we do every single year within all of the guidelines that we have to stay within. And then doing the fresh fruits and vegetables, the Texas-grown products, and then also the high school coffee bar, the old coffee bar, we're going to open that up and we're going to expand that and sell snacks during lunch. And then also we did purchase for the first time a hydroponic system for Emma, which we're really excited about because they get to see what it looks like for those leafy greens and different types of vegetables to grow inside versus in an outside environment. It's a very short period of time so they can kind of see the different steps of how that's going to look. So that was on our 2025 plan, and we were able to make it happen. Also, whatever is produced from that hydroponic system, we can actually use in that cafeteria to feed those kiddos. So we're excited about that. And that's it. Any questions?
Are you worried about having fewer kids eating since we're not going to be on the CEP program anymore?
Yes, we did see during COVID going into the 22-23 school year, which was going back to the free and reduced program, we saw about a 30% reduction in those meals for kiddos. We expect that to happen, but we are going to push as much as possible to get those kiddos in there and get the applications filled out so that they can get the meals they need.
So you're budgeting for that decrease?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you think that 30% reduction was due to them just not filling out that paperwork?
Yes and no. I think some of it was, and then I think some of it may have been the enrollment part of it. The enrollment had decreased during that time frame as well.
And there's nothing we can do, we can't force them to fill the paperwork out, correct?
No, ma'am, because it is a federal form. Anything else? Nope.
Just want to say, Amy and her staff do an amazing job. Something she didn't mention is the Texas Department of Agriculture has actually given them 2 awards in the last year. They partner and serve Texas Farm Fresh fruits and vegetables in our cafeteria. I think when she started, before she started, it was a lot of, I guess, like from concentrate, frozen, and she really made an effort to make sure that the meals looked bright and vibrant, and she's really just done a tremendous job of bringing in organic, fresh fruits and vegetables, and they take pictures and put them online all the time. I see them on Twitter, and it's just amazing the job you and your team do from the top down. And I know those ladies in the cafeteria and gentlemen, because you got a few guys that work there, they're absolutely outstanding, first class. So thank you for your leadership and for everything you and your entire team do for this district.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Amy. Okay, moving on to Community and Schools update with Ms. Clark.
I invited Ms. Garner to come over, and she's the CEO and Executive Director of Greater Tarrant Area Community and Schools, and she's going to give us the update from the last school year on what was going on in community and schools and our schools that have those programs.
Okay. Well, good evening, President Townsend, Dr. Glenn, and trustees. I'm Lindsay Garner, and I am the President and CEO of Communities and Schools of Greater Tarrant County. And I appreciate the opportunity to come and give you an update on the work of our organization with your students and families. Granbury is one of 11 regional school districts that we are currently serving. For me personally, Granbury is a very special place because it is my hometown. I graduated from GHS in 2000, and I have many wonderful memories of teachers and athletic coaches and choir directors and just families in general who were so instrumental in my upbringing. So being able to come full circle and come back and serve the community through Communities and Schools is just a very great honor. So I thank you so much for that. Here we go. Just a quick reminder that this year we placed 3 full-time social workers at Granbury High School, Granbury Middle School, and Bacchus Elementary to provide ongoing case management services. And we also placed 1 full-time mental health counselor in the district to provide counseling services and crisis intervention. Those services were specifically provided to students at GHS, GMS, and Acton Middle School. And services with Communities and Schools always first begin with parental consent, whether that is for enrollment in the case management program or mental health counseling. At the beginning of the school year, we also work directly with the school principal to create a campus plan before services begin. And that is to ensure that we are not only in a position to address individual needs for students, but that any school-wide events that we may work with school staff to plan, that we are in alignment with the larger campus goals that might be on that particular principal's radar, and just to make sure that that our services are reflecting the larger community needs as well, and finding out how we can be a partner to address those needs. So just a quick snapshot of the services being provided so far this year. We're in summer. We're provided in school year 23-24. So first of all, we contract, of course, with Granbury to serve a certain number of students, both for case management and mental health. So the number that we were contracted to serve for our case management services was 225, and the actual number that was served was 239. Again, that was at GHS, GMS, and Bacchus. And the breakdown of service hours for the different services that were provided was 1,093 hours of school-wide supports, 734 hours in small group support, and 948 hours of one-on-one student intervention. And on the mental health counseling side, we were contracted to serve 25 students. An actual number that received ongoing counseling services was 32. At the campuses I've already mentioned. Specific time allocated to crisis response was 21 hours, and individual counseling session hours was 290. And again, that's it's a big benefit to our students who receive counseling services. It would be no different than if you or I were to need to go and see a therapist, and rather than having to go out in the community and find somebody who is a good fit, and you may or may not be able to get there, there might be a transportation barrier or a cost barrier, you are providing that service for free to the student directly inside the school. So some specific examples of school-wide support services, we'll just name a few. So we have our partnership with Rack Room Shoes, and that raises funds and some matching funds as well that go to the district, and that CIS helps to manage that, buy students new shoes if they are needed. We have a partnership with UWorld that helps students identify next steps after high school, and then supports them in the process of setting goals and then staying on track to meet those goals. We are also managing the mentorship program at GMS, which of course engages community members and provides just adult role models for students who might need that. And they come and visit weekly with the students, and then clothing closets at each of the campuses that we serve. And some examples of small group sessions would be if there are, anytime we see, a common need arise, that would be easier to address by getting students in small groups. So that could be something academic on the tutoring side. We could hold conflict resolution sessions with students who are experiencing some tension between peers at school, which obviously has implications for just school climate and potential safety. We go over test taking strategies. We use things like a kindness jar. We work on middle school preparation for transitioning into high school, and teamwork and problem solving in general. And then some of our one-on-one interventions include college and career readiness and preparation, home visits where that's determined to be a need where they need to go into the home and work with the family to assess any specific needs that are lacking, home visits to deliver meal bags, and then a big focus, and this also ties back into those larger campus plans, was a focus on family engagement and increasing attendance overall. And so we've put quite a lot of emphasis in incentives to incentivize students to improve their attendance. And then finally, going back to our mental health counseling services, I wanted to just highlight a few of the trends that our mental health counselor was seeing this year, both ongoing in terms of things that were being addressed in counseling sessions, but the underlying things that can lead to some of the crisis interventions. And so we were seeing cutting and suicidal ideation. We conduct risk assessments, and when we need to, of course, we reach out to a parent or guardian, or for a student who's over 18, whoever their emergency contact is. And we're seeing restlessness and fidgeting, those students not being able to stay in their seats, stay focused, or who tend to leave without permission. Additional outbursts of anger, which can obviously be disruptive to the learning environment. And then students who talk about just excessive worrying, racing thoughts, that they feel like they can't control, an inability to concentrate, and just increased irritability in their social interactions. And also a lot of reports from students with difficulty sleeping, sleep disturbances, and so then you end up with kids that are coming to school tired or chronic absenteeism due to their oversleeping and not showing up for class. So these are some of the things that have been identified among the needs for students, and one of the reasons why it has been so very important to provide them with those ongoing counseling sessions, so that those are things that can be addressed in session. So a couple of highlights for our academic outcomes. So of the students that were coming and enrolling in the case management program, 8% of the students that were enrolled were failing English at the time of enrollment, 9% were failing math, 11% were failing science, and some of them might have been failing in more than one subject, and 8% were failing in social studies. So by the end of the school year, 89% of the students who had been failing in English saw improvement in their English scores. 55% of them improved their math scores, 70% improved science, and 50% improved in social studies. And one of the things that I really want to highlight for you, because we're all very focused on attendance and getting that up, this was our 6th year to partner with Granbury, and we're starting to see a trend just over the last few years, which I've kind of highlighted here. Going back even in the last 4, we're seeing that the students who are enrolled in communities and schools, and particularly enrolled over time, we're seeing their attendance having improved from 71% just 4 years ago to what we're anticipating. We're waiting for our official outcomes to come from this last school year, but we're anticipating a 94% attendance improvement rate among CIS students. So we're pretty excited about that. And I wanted to quickly share just one story of a student that we had the privilege of working with this past year. A junior at Granbury High School began working with their CIS program manager, Ms. Taylor, in February of '24. This student struggled with making positive choices and was required to attend the BTC program for several weeks during the spring semester. After meeting with the family, Ms. Taylor learned that transportation to BTC was an ongoing barrier for the family and offered to get the student to and from BTC each day. Each morning and afternoon, Ms. Taylor was able to visit with the student and learn more about their situation, discuss their goals, and help them formulate a plan to complete their schoolwork, ultimately with the goal of returning to GHS. During these visits, Ms. Taylor discovered that the student's family often struggled with not having enough food in the home and were able to begin providing them with meal bags. After several weeks at BTC and working with Ms. Taylor, the student completed their assignments and was able to return to GHS. During the transition, Ms. Taylor remained in contact with the family to provide ongoing support. And upon returning, Ms. Taylor provided check-ins with the student to ensure they were staying on top of their assignments and to support them in their emotional well-being as they transitioned back. The student also asked for assistance in completing their summer job applications. By the end of the school year, the student had successfully adjusted back into GHS and is excited to begin their senior year in the fall. So in conclusion, it's just overall been another great year of serving Granbury students, and I just want to thank you, all of you, for your amazing leadership in this district. And I want to acknowledge some of what's already been said in the budget video, that it is a really tough time for folks in education, and we do not take it for granted that budget dollars are tight and that funding for public education is not necessarily what we all want to see. And so we understand that you have to be very choosy with where you invest those dollars. And we thank you so much for choosing to invest them in student support services like communities and schools. So thank you so much for your attention and allowing me to speak to you. Any questions?
Thank you so much for all the work and support y'all provide our families and students in Granbury ISD. We truly appreciate the work y'all do.
Thank you so much.
All right.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let's see. All right, and we're going to have Mr. Whitefield finish us off for starting with the financial statement for the period ending June 30th, 2024.
Thank you, Madam President. Board, you do have in front of you the statement for the month ending June 30th, 2024. The statement includes only those transactions that occurred between September 1st of 2023 and June 30th of 2024. Revenue collected to date equals 88.38% of the budgeted amount compared to 96.61% in 22 and 23. Expenditures to date represent 76.36% of the budget as compared to 78.28% in 2022-23. Notable situation there is the property taxes. You can see there is a $9.4 million out there that hasn't been received in property taxes. This is a software glitch that was reported in the 5253 from the Central Appraisal Districts. The Monday of spring break, we filed an audit, which is a 5302 with the Comptroller's Office. 2 weeks ago during the 4th of July break, received an email from the Comptroller's Office. They were drawing all of those audits, and they've created a Form 5400, which is a 2023 School District Freeze Corrections Request, which we are working with the Central Appraisal Districts to fill out, and we should have a resolution to that as soon as those are received. That was a glitch in the software that did not recognize the loss in revenue and frozen tax value reductions. So that was about a $10 million loss, and you can see that is pretty close to the 9.4 that we're short up in property taxes. So we will likely not see that before the end of the year, but it will be during the audit. So we should have that as a receivable, and it should appear in the audit as soon as we hear from the Comptroller's Office on it.
Excellent.
So it should rectify itself out. It will just move from the 5700s to the 5800s and hold harmless. That is what we are hanging our hat on. And that's your financials. Are there any questions?
Very good. Okay, let's move on to the general operating fund.
The
Cash flow and investment report.
Yes, ma'am. Board in front of you do have the cash flow and investment report for June 30th, 2024. You can see that the revenue, the interest income for June 24 was $275,947.80, bringing our total for the fiscal year to $2,253,947.80. $310,409.41, which is significantly better than it was in years past.
That's not surprising. No questions on that? Let's move on to our categorical spending report.
Board, in front of you, you do have the categorical purchases between $50,000 and $100,000. Board policy CH local states that we can make those purchases through approved cooperatives, but then we bring them to you after those purchases are made as informational. You see the budget impact was $316,304.14. The chart that's attached to the back of it are 5 purchases that were made between $50,000 and $100,000, and they're all noted there, and that is the budget impact of $316,000.
Okay, thank you so much. And with that, it is 6:59, and we are adjourned.
Thank you, Board.